The sharp scent of disinfectant filled the hospital room. My foster brother, Ethan Carter, stood in front of me alongside his close friend, Ryan Lewis. My head pounded, on the verge of splitting apart. I wavered, dazed, feeling as if the scene before me wasn't real at all. Where was I? Who was I? Ethan assumed I had lost my memory. Without hesitation, he pointed at Ryan beside him, his tone carrying a hint of amusement. You're my sister, Sophie Carter, and this is your boyfriend, Ryan Lewis. I was stunned, my gaze snapping toward Ryan. The man's sharp, cold features were drawn downward, tinged with a quiet sorrow. He deliberately avoided looking at me, but I could feel his gaze lingering subtly, carrying an almost imperceptible restraint. It was the same as in my past life. In my previous life, I had spent years obsessing over Ethan. After the car accident, he mistakenly thought I had lost my memory. In order to get rid of me, he deliberately claimed that Ryan was my boyfriend. In reality, when I first regained consciousness, I did experience temporary amnesia, but I recovered quickly. Facing Ethan's deception, I didn't think too much. Instead, I instinctively exposed his lie on the spot. Eager to prove that I had never lost my memory, I carefully grabbed Ethan's sleeve, my eyes brimming with tears. I remember everything. I'm not lying. Ethan had no choice but to relent. His expression tensed, and just like every time I had cried over the past 5 years, he pulled me into his arms. I'm sorry, Sophie. I made a mistake. My heart leapt with joy, and I quickly brushed aside the entire incident. At 16, I had already realized that my feelings for Ethan weren't normal. Every time he dated someone, I would deliberately ruin his relationships. The books called it possessiveness. I neither confirmed nor denied it. Ethan, too, tacitly allowed my behavior. More than once, when I caused trouble for his girlfriends, he secretly intervened, ensuring their departure. He indulged my reckless behavior. That night, I was drunk. I clung to Ethan, pressing against him. He didn't push me away. Instead, his entire body tensed as he let me do whatever I wanted. In my arrogance, I assumed Ethan felt the same way about me. But I had overlooked one crucial fact. He had never once admitted it. I kissed him for a long time. Then, suddenly, he snapped out of it, shoving me away in disgust. He touched his swollen lips, his tone dripping with disdain. Sophie, how could you love your own brother? That's disgusting. It felt like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over me. My whole body froze. No, I don't love you. My voice faltered, growing weaker with every word. But when he questioned again, you don't love me? Huh. I had no answer. Deep down, I knew the truth. I did love him. I was an orphan, and Ethan was the only person in the world who had ever truly cared for me. How could I not love him? He must have realized this too, because his expression darkened further with revulsion. A freak like you belongs in a mental institution. My thoughts snapped back to the present. I looked at Ethan, watching as he smirked at me with quiet amusement. A shiver ran down my spine, and I instinctively clenched my fists. My nails dug deep into my palms, the sharp pain forcing me to remain calm. I stared into Ethan's eyes, my voice steady and resolute. I understand now. In this lifetime, I would never let myself be entangled with him again. Everything had ended the moment I died in my past life. The days in the psychiatric hospital had been unbearable. Ethan visited me once every 2 weeks. I couldn't endure the daily beatings and humiliation. Crying, I begged him, please, Ethan, let me out. I was wrong. I won't love you anymore. But every time, he would simply look down at me coldly, his voice devoid of emotion. Sophie, you're losing your mind again. And with that, the torment would begin anew. I tried to contact everyone I knew, desperately seeking help to get out. But Ethan Carter had already prepared for this. He had locked down all information about my whereabouts so tightly that not a single message could get out. In just 6 months, I was tortured to death. After I died, Ethan went mad, clinging to my lifeless body, refusing to let go. He said he regretted everything. He said he loved me. He sobbed over and over, confessing his twisted fears and contradictions. He had been terrified of how others would judge him for loving his foster sister. As a wandering spirit, I stood by and watched it all with cold detachment. I felt nothing but disgust. Even now, seeing Ethan again made me physically nauseous. So, I turned to Ryan Lewis instead. Holding back my tears, I spread my arms toward him and whispered softly, "Husband, hold me." Crash. The sharp sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the hospital room. I glanced sideways. Ethan's hand was covered in blood, brownish liquid from a broken medicine bottle pooling at his feet. Utterly revolting, he stood frozen in place. His usual smug amusement wiped clean from his face, replaced by pure fury. But I couldn't care less about him now. My entire focus was on Ryan. From the moment I called him husband, Ryan's eyes had turned red. His gaze lifted to me, filled with disbelief, excitement, and, above all, an overwhelming intensity. His lips trembled as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he simply took a few quick steps forward and pulled me tightly into his arms. His voice was hoarse but firm as he murmured, "Mm." Ethan clenched his injured fist, blood dripping steadily to the floor. He coughed lightly and lifted his wounded hand toward me. The stench of blood made me wrinkle my nose in disgust. Without hesitation, Ryan pulled me closer, shielding me with his coat. I peeked out from his embrace, only for my vision to be covered by a warm hand. "Don't look. It's disgusting." Ryan stepped in front of me, his expression cold as he glared at Ethan. His eyes were filled with unmasked contempt. "You know he's afraid of blood, yet you still do this on purpose. Are you trying to make him sick?" A strange feeling stirred in my chest. I brushed Ryan's hand aside and looked up at him, studying his pale yet sharp features. He looked exactly as I remembered, though somehow, he seemed even more striking than before. In my past life, Ryan had always been quiet and reserved. Seeing him openly confront Ethan like this, it was a first. Ethan was just as surprised. "What the hell does this have to do with you?" He rolled his eyes, but his injured hand trembled slightly as he held it out again, as if waiting for my reaction. "Sophie, I'm hurt." If this had been before, I would have panicked, scrambling to find ointment, crying as I bandaged his wound. But now, I only shrank further into Ryan's embrace, my eyes flickering with revulsion as I glanced at Ethan's filthy, bloodied hand. "There are doctors and nurses outside." "Ethan, I'm not a doctor." Impatiently, I cut him off. "I'm tired. I want to go home." Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Ryan's lips curving upward, like a puppy wagging its tail in satisfaction. Physically, I was fine. The doctor said I just needed rest. But Ryan refused to let me walk on my own. He insisted on carrying me out of the hospital. That moment, Ethan finally snapped. His expression darkened as he grabbed my arm in a death grip. "Sophie, didn't you say you wanted to go home?" I pried his fingers off me one by one, watching as red marks formed on my skin. "Yes, I'm going home. With my boyfriend. Is that a problem?" Ethan let out a bitter laugh, his voice shaking with fury. "Sophie Carter, you better not regret this." I met his gaze head on, my voice unwavering. "The only thing I regret is not realizing the truth sooner. In my past life, I had been a fool, manipulated by Ethan at every turn. Not this time." Ryan carried me to the car, carefully buckled my seatbelt, and started the engine. The moment he hit the gas, we sped off, leaving Ethan far behind. Throughout the drive, Ryan's hand never once let go of mine. His palm was warm, steady, reassuring. When we finally arrived home, exhaustion weighed on me. My body felt uncomfortable, and all I wanted was a hot shower. Ryan, ever attentive, immediately prepared the bath. He even pulled out a brand new bottle of essential oil. As he unsealed it, the delicate scent of jasmine filled the air. My favorite. Then, he walked over to the closet, picking out a fresh set of loungewear for me. The tags were still attached. The size was a perfect fit. I frowned slightly. "Why do you have this?" Ryan scratched the back of his head, his face turning red all the way to his ears. "I saw it while shopping. Thought it would suit you. So I bought it." "You bought this? Just in case." I pointed at the wardrobe behind him, which was filled with women's clothing. Nearly half of the space was occupied by brand new outfits, all from the brands I liked. Raising a brow, I teased, Don't get the wrong idea. I trailed off, blinking at him expectantly, waiting for his response. Ryan Lewis let out a long sigh, his expression shifting as if he had finally given up pretending. What's wrong with buying clothes for my girlfriend? Was this really the same Ryan I remembered? The insecure, overly sensitive guy who used to blush just from talking to me? In my past life, until the moment I died in that psychiatric hospital, Ryan and I had barely interacted. It was only after my death that I realized the depth of his love for me. After I died, my soul remained trapped in the apartment where I had lived before. Once I became aware of my feelings for Ethan Carter, I had moved out of his home. When news of my death spread, Ryan had gone to Ethan, demanding an explanation, but there was none to be given. Ethan coldly declared that I had died of an incurable illness. Ryan wasn't even allowed to investigate the truth. That night, he effortlessly broke into my apartment, hacking the electronic lock with ease. I watched in shock as he stumbled into my bedroom. By the time my spirit drifted after him, I saw his tall figure curled up on my bed. His broad shoulders trembled, his face buried in my pillow, the fabric darkened by his tears. I wanted to comfort him but had no idea where to begin. In the end, I simply sat beside him, watching him in silence. At some point, I couldn't help myself. I reached out and brushed my hand over his soft hair. But I was just a ghost. My fingers passed right through him. I tried again, gently stroking the back of his head like soothing a child. Ryan, stop crying. If you keep this up, I'll have no choice but to kick you. His delicate face stiffened under my touch. Then, suddenly, his eyes flew open, and large tears rolled down his cheeks. Yet, the next moment, he shut them again, as if resigning himself to the pain. Liar, he whispered. The room fell into an eerie silence, broken only by his quiet, muffled sobs. From that day on, Ryan moved into my apartment. He lived there, keeping my ghost company. People laughed at him, calling him crazy. Even I thought he was foolish. He constantly talked to himself, sometimes sharing joyful moments as if I were still there, sometimes pouring out his darkest thoughts. I sat beside him, silently listening, watching as his once cold expression softened with sorrow. Day by day, he wasted away. I knew he was sick. The dining table was always cluttered with boxes of medication. I begged him to take care of himself, to live. But he couldn't hear me. We spent 3 years together, two lonely souls, separated by an insurmountable barrier. I couldn't touch him. He couldn't hear me. As time passed, my spirit became more and more transparent. I knew it wouldn't be long before I completely vanished from this world. Ryan still left the apartment every morning and returned late at night, but I had no idea what he was doing outside. I couldn't leave the apartment, so I remained unaware of what was happening in the outside world. Then, on the 3rd anniversary of my death, Ryan did something unusual. Before leaving, he turned on the television and tuned it to the news channel. Just before stepping out, he looked in my direction, his gaze lingering for a long time. A strange unease crept into my heart. Then, the emergency news broadcast began. Ethan Carter, the head of the Yates Corporation, has died in a suspected hit-and-run incident. Authorities believe this may have been the result of a personal vendetta. The suspect is currently on the run, and the police are actively pursuing leads. The suspect was Ryan. He was a fool. Panic surged through me. My spirit trembled violently, gathering an overwhelming energy. I forced my way out of the apartment, breaking through the invisible barrier that had kept me bound. I followed the pull of a familiar presence, drifting, searching, until I arrived at my grave. Ryan was there, clutching my tombstone, crying like a child. Sophie, I finally avenged you. At his feet lay several empty pill bottles and crushed beer cans. I circled around him in distress. The cemetery was deserted. There was no one else around to witness what was happening. Ryan Lewis, I forbid you to die. Do you hear me? My near hysterical scream seemed to jolt him awake. For a moment, his blurry eyes locked onto mine. Then, a faint, satisfied smile curled his lips. You've come for me, haven't you? As the last word fell from his lips, he lifted his wrist, already covered in scars, and dragged a blade across his skin. Sophie Carter, If there is a next life, I swear, I'll be brave enough to hold your hand. Thank God, I was given a second chance at life. Now, looking at his face, so close, so real, I vowed not to waste it. My face flushed red, and my eyes grew misty. The image of Ryan Lewis in his final moments from my past life twisted painfully in my heart. The pain was unbearable, sharp enough to make me wince. A warm hand gently cupped my face, carefully wiping away the tears from the corners of my eyes. Does your wound still hurt? The accident hadn't been serious. My injuries were just surface wounds. Nothing compared to the suffering I had endured in my past life. The pain was nothing. I had no intention of letting Ryan know that I had been reborn. I simply nodded, then greedily leaned into his warmth. It hurts. It hurts so much. Only kisses can make it better. Ryan licked his lips, his dark eyes gleaming. Just kisses? Is that enough? Before I could react, a strong hand gripped the back of my head, and suddenly, his lips crashed against mine. His kiss was overwhelming, possessive, as if he wanted to consume me completely. My breath was stolen away, my mind blank from the intensity. Then, my phone rang. It was Ethan Carter. I didn't want to answer, but the ringing continued, relentless, refusing to stop. Annoyed, I reached out to hang up, but my fingers accidentally pressed the accept button. Sophie. His voice was low, measured. I've been thinking, you should move back home. The housekeeper can take care of you. A muffled sound escaped my lips before I could stop it. Ethan's voice instantly sharpened. Sophie, what are you doing? Answer me. Don't get distracted. I had no time to reply. My hand was caught, and the call was cut off. Half an hour later, I was still tangled in Ryan's arms, unable to get up. The muffled sound of someone kicking the door echoed from outside. Ryan Lewis. Who the hell allowed you to touch him? Ethan's voice was filled with rage. He was so damn noisy. I had no intention of dealing with him, but it seemed he wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. Reluctantly, I climbed off Ryan. My mood dampened. He ruffled my messy hair, smiling with crescent-shaped eyes. Good. I ignored him and shooed him toward the door. With his lips still swollen from our kiss, Ryan casually went to open it. The moment the door cracked open, Ethan barged in like a madman. His dark gaze swept over me, scrutinizing every inch before locking onto my neck, where faint red marks were still visible. You touched him. You actually touched him. Ethan's voice was almost unhinged with fury. His fist clenched tightly before swinging toward Ryan with hatred. He lost his memory. Do you even realize you're taking advantage of him? I gasped. Ryan effortlessly dodged the punch, his expression calm. Was this really the same Ryan Lewis I knew? When had he become this skilled? His movements were swift and precise, his strikes ruthless. Within moments, he had completely overpowered Ethan, tossing him out the door. Get lost. Don't bother him again. The door slammed shut. All that remained was Ryan's broad back, his posture unwavering. But the moment he turned around, his expression softened, the familiar warmth returning. Did I scare you? I was stunned, utterly speechless. Something was off. Ryan. I narrowed my eyes. Are you hiding something from me? He scratched his head, looking slightly embarrassed. Then he nodded. I crossed my arms. So, what did you secretly train for? His long fingers casually pointed to his toned abs. You like abs, don't you? I blinked. When did I ever say that? Then, a memory surfaced. In my past life, I had spent countless days staring at his perfectly sculpted abs, wanting to touch them but never daring to. At the time, I had indeed voiced my admiration. But, how did Ryan know? I stared at him suspiciously, only to meet his bright, knowing gaze. I know about your secret account, he admitted, smirking. The one where you used to comment on fitness videos. He had really done his research. I had, in fact, used a burner account to post some very enthusiastic comments online. But now that he had called me out so blatantly, I felt my dignity crumbling. How was I supposed to mess with him if he had already figured me out? Fine. I admitted defeat. I eagerly rubbed my hands together, my eyes fixed on his rock-hard abs. Can I touch them? His handsome face darkened slightly, But after a long pause, a barely audible slipped from his lips. The next morning, I woke up sprawled over his abs. Ryan's skin was covered in faint red marks. Marks I had left. Ryan Lewis was a quiet sleeper. He barely moved the entire night. Back when I was still a spirit, I had shared a bed with him for 3 whole years. But this was the first time I was lying next to him as a human again. The initial high from last night had passed, and now embarrassment washed over me like a tidal wave. My face burned as I instinctively tried to slip away. But before I could escape, a firm grip caught my ankle, pulling me back into his arms. Ryan's lips brushed against mine, a teasing smirk curving at the corners as he lazily murmured, "Getting shy now? Last night, when you called me master, you didn't look like this at all." My entire body trembled. I pushed him away with shaky hands. "I'm hungry." Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly, but his fingers didn't stop tracing over my skin. Quickly clarified. "I mean, my stomach is hungry." As if on cue, my stomach let out a small growl. Ryan sighed in disappointment but finally withdrew his hand, leaning back with an amused expression. "That's strange. Another part of you was saying it was hungry too." By the time we got out of bed and left the room, the housekeeper had already prepared lunch and quietly left. The table was filled with dishes I loved. After the meal, Ryan asked, "Do you have any plans for today?" I deliberately played along, feigning confusion. "I lost my memory. I can't remember anything. Why don't you tell me how we used to date?" His face flushed red, but there was a proud glint in his eyes. He swayed his head slightly, looking smug. "You used to love being with me. You never wanted to be apart. And where did we like to go on dates?" For a brief moment, I wasn't sure if I was imagining things, but his expression darkened. A trace of sorrow flashed in his eyes. He hesitated, lost in deep thought, as if recalling something from a long, long time ago. "We like to stay at home." Stay at home. Thinking back to this morning, my waist was still sore. There was no way I could spend another day cooped up indoors. "Ryan, let's go to the home decor store." He hummed in response. Ryan had never liked lively places, and his home reflected that. It was minimalist and cold. Gray furniture, clean lines, devoid of any warmth or personal touches. But I wanted to leave my mark here, not just in the wardrobe with a few pieces of clothing, but everywhere. Because Ryan was always so anxious about losing me. Even if I disappeared for just a few seconds, he would immediately rush over to check. Only when he saw that I was still there, safe and sound, would he let out a relieved sigh and pull me tightly into his arms. "Sophie, I thought I lost you again." His voice trembled slightly, his breaths coming fast and uneven. "When I can't see you, it feels like something is missing." So, he had tried to fill that emptiness by surrounding himself with reminders of me. In just one day, the house transformed completely. I placed plush toys on the bed and the sofa. Ryan scoffed, calling it childish. But I caught him secretly playing with one, squeezing it in his hands until it was deformed. The cold gray bedsheets were replaced with warm pastel pink. The slippers were swapped for adorable bunny-shaped ones. I even picked out matching couple pajamas, one for him and one for me. The living room now held fresh-cut flowers, vibrant orange roses, blooming passionately, radiating warmth like winter sunshine. In the bathroom, I placed a pair of ceramic dolls on the marble counter. One boy, one girl, their faces pressed together. Ryan insisted that the girl looked like me. Round face, very cute. I argued that the boy looked like him. Dumb but adorable. Makes you want to kiss him. Neither of us backed down. In the end, we decided to place the dolls beside the mirror and agreed that we would stare at them every day until one of us admitted defeat. After taking a shower, we curled up on the couch together, watching a movie. Ryan draped a soft, fuzzy blanket over us, wrapping me securely in his warmth. The movie was a heartwarming romance, a story of 2 childhood sweethearts who secretly loved each other for years before finally getting together. In the final scene, the couple adopted a small puppy and lived happily ever after. It was such a simple and peaceful ending. A lump formed in my throat. My nose tingled as an unsettling thought crossed my mind. What would happen if I ever left Ryan Lewis again? He was the most stubborn person I knew. If I disappeared, he would definitely spiral just like in our past life. No, I absolutely couldn't let him do anything foolish again. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Then, with the utmost seriousness, I cupped Ryan's face and looked straight into his deep eyes. Ryan, let's get a cat. Or maybe a dog. His brows furrowed slightly, a flicker of vigilance flashing across his face. He caught my wrist and held it firmly in his palm. Why? You've never liked animals before. I hesitated for a moment before answering. It's not that I don't like animals. I just wasn't allowed to. In my past life, Ethan Carter's family disapproved of pets. Since I lived under their roof, I had no choice but to follow their rules. I had begged Ethan for a long time before he finally caved and secretly brought home a kitten for me. But before I even got to hold it, my adoptive mother found out. She threw the kitten away and scolded Ethan, accusing him of being irresponsible and unworthy of inheriting the family business. She was so furious, claiming I was a bad influence on him, that she locked me in a dark storage room as punishment. She warned me that if I ever corrupted Ethan again, she would send me back to the orphanage. I never understood how something as simple as a kitten could cause such an uproar, but I was too afraid to resist. I didn't want to go back to the orphanage. So, to appease my adoptive mother, I knelt on the ground, tearfully admitting my mistake, swearing that I would never bring another animal into the house again. Only then did her cold expression soften. She locked me away for a full week. By the time I was let out, the kitten had long since disappeared. It had become a stray, lost somewhere in the city. I had searched for it but never found it. Heartbroken, I wandered aimlessly around the park. That was when I saw Ryan for the first time, crouched down, cradling a large bowl of cat food, quietly feeding a group of stray kittens. The moonlight cast a soft glow over him, making his usually cold features seem almost gentle. I had never seen this side of Ryan before. Ryan's life wasn't much better than mine. No, in some ways, he had it even worse. He was an illegitimate child, unwanted and unacknowledged. His father had been drunk the night he was conceived, and his mother had schemed to get pregnant, hoping to secure a place in the family. But her plan backfired. Ryan became the biggest disgrace to the Lewis family, an embarrassment no one wanted to acknowledge. They treated him as if he were invisible, a stain on their prestigious name. He grew up shrouded in insecurity and darkness. The only warmth he received came from the stray animals in the park, tiny creatures that would rub against his pant legs, trusting him in a way that humans never did. I wanted to get a pet, because if, one day, I left again, Ryan's sense of responsibility would prevent him from abandoning it. Of course, I couldn't let him know that was my reason. I leaned in and kissed his lips softly. Having a little one around would make the house feel livelier. The word little one made Ryan's entire body tense. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. He seemed to be struggling with something, his emotions too tangled to express. Well, what do you think? I still had unfinished business with Ethan Carter. I couldn't let him off the hook for what he did in my past life. But Ethan was powerful. If something happened to me, I needed to make sure Ryan wouldn't do anything reckless. His dark eyes held my reflection for a long time. The silence stretched between us, so quiet that all I could hear was our steady breathing. I suddenly felt nervous, hooking my arms around his neck. I urged, "Say something. Ryan, what do you think?" After another beat of silence, he finally responded, Okay. That night, I had a nightmare. In my dream, I saw Ryan collapsed in front of my grave, his white sleeves stained crimson with blood. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. I reached out instinctively, only to find the bed empty. Ryan was gone. A wave of panic crashed over me. I didn't even bother putting on shoes. I jumped out of bed and ran barefoot through the house, searching for him. Strange noises came from the rooftop. My heart clenched. I ran upstairs, pushing the terrace doors open with force. Ryan. He turned his head at my call. He was wearing an apron, gloves on his hands. The ground was covered with thick gardening mats, and in front of him was a row of blooming flowers in vibrant colors. Each and every one of them was a flower I loved, flowers I had once planted in my old apartment. After I was locked away in the psychiatric hospital, no one took care of my flowers. Ryan Lewis tried everything, but he couldn't save them. And now, here he was, planting flowers again. Why isn't he wearing shoes? Ryan took off his gloves, got up, and went to fetch a towel for my feet. Then, he brought over a small stool and patted the spot beside him, signaling for me to sit down. What made you think of planting flowers? His pale, slender fingers scooped up a handful of soil, pressing it gently into a pot before watering it. Droplets clung to the pink rose petals, shimmering like crystal beads. Once the whole terrace is in full bloom, I can take lots of beautiful pictures of you. The thought painted a lovely scene in my mind. Ryan will definitely have that day. We adopted a little orange kitten and a yellow and white puppy. Ryan had always been the more patient one, making him much better at taking care of them. He also naturally took over most of the household chores. These days, he was constantly busy, yet his face always carried a bright, relaxed smile. Every morning, he would water the flowers, then feed and clean up after the two little troublemakers. After breakfast, he would insist on taking me along to walk them. At night, after our baths, we would curl up on the couch to watch our favorite shows. The kitten and puppy would snuggle at our feet, occasionally letting out contented little sighs. Felt so blissful. The person I loved was right beside me. If I turned my head, I could kiss his soft lips. Just thinking about it made my heart race. I couldn't stop myself from smiling, the corners of my mouth curling up uncontrollably. I want to kiss him. Wait, why does Ryan look like he's enjoying something? Did he figure out what I was thinking? Damn it, I had hidden it so well. Before I could react, his face suddenly appeared right in front of me. Then, he kissed me, out of nowhere. His deep voice murmured against my lips. Sophie Carter, I love you. I had thought we would have more time together. I never expected our separation to come so soon. That day, after leaving the supermarket, I suddenly craved milk tea. I told Ryan to go ahead to the parking garage and bring the car around while I went to buy some. He had barely walked away when a sleek black Porsche Panamera pulled up beside me. I recognized it immediately. Ethan Carter's car. I turned and bolted, but two men in black suits stepped out, grabbing me before I could escape. I was shoved into the car. The driver slammed on the gas. The tires screeched as the car sped off. A partition slowly rose, sealing off the back seat from the front. Ethan Carter, are you insane? Let me go. His tall figure loomed over me, radiating an oppressive force. I scrambled backward, pressing myself against the car door, but he reached out and pulled me into his arms. His ice-cold fingers traced along my waist over the fabric of my clothes. He's lost his mind. What was he trying to do? Was he planning to lock me up in a psychiatric hospital again? No, absolutely not. The terror of my past imprisonment crept over me like a suffocating shadow. Panic surged through my veins. My entire body trembled uncontrollably, curling up in the corner. I hid my hand behind my back and discreetly unlocked my phone, trying to send an SOS message to Ryan. But before I could type, Ethan suddenly pinned me in place. His long arm reached in, and without hesitation, he snatched the phone from my grip. I lunged forward to grab it back. Ethan, what the hell are you doing? He ignored me, restraining my other wrist effortlessly as he rolled down the window. Then, right in front of my despairing eyes, he tossed my phone out. After completing the act, he pulled me tightly into his embrace and pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Sophie, you're so disobedient. His voice was eerily gentle. This is my fault. I should never have let you leave my side. But don't worry. It won't happen again. From now on, we'll be together forever. Okay. No. Let me go. I struggled with all my strength and slapped him across the face. But instead of getting angry, he only held me even tighter. His expression was a mix of madness and obsession. Sophie, stop lying to yourself. You love me. The only reason you're with Ryan is to make me jealous. His tone grew increasingly deranged. You're trying to punish me, aren't you? Punish me for pretending not to know your feelings all this time. But I know now. Sophie, I was wrong. I'm not your brother. Let's start over. Sophie, please. Ethan Carter had completely lost his mind. Ethan, I said, my voice cold and unwavering. I have never liked you. His eyes darkened. That's impossible. You're lying. During the time I was locked in the psychiatric hospital, I had spent every single day reflecting on my feelings for him. I had been jealous whenever I saw him with other women. I had gone to great lengths to drive them away. I had always followed his every move, greedily hoping he would never look at anyone else. But none of that had been real. It was never love. It was the result of his manipulation. Ethan had indulged my reckless behavior for years, feeding me just enough kindness to keep me attached. Every time I started to doubt my feelings, he would cross boundaries that no brother should. Yet he never fully admitted nor denied his actions. This had been his game all along. From the very beginning, it was Ethan who had harbored feelings beyond sibling affection. He had refused to acknowledge them, tormented by his own possessiveness, and instead blamed everything on me. Ethan Carter was nothing but a coward. How could I ever love someone like him? I shoved him away with all my strength. My voice was sharp and merciless as I tore apart his deepest, most shameful secret. Ethan Carter, you fell in love with your foster sister. That's disgusting. For a long time, I had been waiting for this moment, to throw these words back at him, exactly as he had once said to me. His entire body stiffened. His face twisted into something dark and unreadable. Then, with sudden force, he grabbed my clothes and tore them apart. Cold air swept over my bare shoulder. A monster awakened before my eyes. His fingers tightened around my neck, pressing down inch by inch. Yes, I love you, he admitted, his voice raw and filled with madness. Every second you spend with that bastard, I want to rip you away from him. You will never escape me. Just like in my past life, he wanted to imprison me once again. But I would never let that happen. A sharp pain bloomed on my lips as he crushed them in a violent kiss. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. I reached into my pocket, fingers wrapping around the small switchblade I had hidden there. Then, with all the strength I could muster, I plunged it into his chest. Ethan let out a muffled grunt but didn't let go. Instead, his grip on my wrist tightened, and he slowly twisted the knife's handle with a smirk. Does that make you feel better? He's a lunatic. I should have expected this. Ethan Carter was utterly insane. Suddenly, the car swerved sharply. The screech of tires and the force of the sudden brake nearly shattered my eardrums. The momentum sent me crashing forward. But before I could hit anything, Ethan pulled me into his arms. A groan of pain slipped past his lips, likely from his fresh wound being torn open. Then, he snapped at the driver. Are you trying to get yourself killed? The driver stammered. Young master, there's a car blocking us, forcing us to stop. A black Maybach. Ryan. The vehicle in front was driving aggressively, pushing forward at breakneck speed, barely leaving enough space to avoid a collision. He's reckless. But Ethan was even crazier. Ram into him. Let's see if he's really ready to die. Ethan underestimated the human survival instinct. The driver wasn't foolish enough to risk his life for his employer. Just as the two cars were about to collide, he slammed on the brakes, jerking the steering wheel and crashing into the side of the median instead. The Maybach came to an immediate halt. Ryan's eyes burned with fury as he stormed over. He wrenched open the car door and scanned me from head to toe, his hands trembling slightly as he confirmed I was unharmed. Only then did he exhale sharply, releasing the breath he had been holding. He carefully pulled me out of the car, draping his coat over my shoulders. Stay here and wait for me. Then, without another word, he dragged Ethan out of the vehicle. He clenched his fists and swung, one brutal punch after another. Ryan didn't say a single word. All his fury, all his pain, was poured into every single hit. Ethan had already been injured from the knife wound, and when the car crashed, he had instinctively shielded me, crushing his leg under the impact. Now, with Ryan mercilessly beating him, he couldn't even make a sound of pain. He's going to die. If Ethan dies, Ryan won't be able to walk away from this. I rushed forward, grabbing Ryan's fist, wrapping my fingers tightly around his knuckles. Ryan, we still have to go home. My voice was soft, but it was enough. His entire body tensed, his breathing uneven. But finally, he stopped. The driver was still alive. Ethan was still alive. And Ryan was here, with me. The first thing Ryan did was call an ambulance and have the unconscious Ethan Carter sent to the hospital. What happened afterward was handled by my adoptive mother. After Ethan woke up, she immediately had him sent away, citing mental instability and the need for treatment. As for where he was taken, I had no idea. And frankly, I had no interest in knowing. While Ethan was still unconscious, I secretly backed up the recording I had made in the car and sent a copy to my adoptive mother. As soon as she received it, she reached out to negotiate with me. If that recording were to be exposed, Ethan's crimes would be undeniable. Moreover, the scandal of a wealthy heir being obsessed with his foster sister was hardly good for the family's reputation. Ethan himself might not have cared, but his parents had spent their whole lives building their legacy. They wouldn't stand by and watch everything crumble. Of course, Ryan also played a hand in this. He had gathered solid evidence of Ethan's crimes and delivered it directly to Ethan's adoptive father. How they chose to handle it was up to them. 3 months after Ethan was secretly sent away, a scandal erupted. The Yates Corporation was betrayed by one of its own. Their financial chain was severed, plunging the company into a severe economic crisis. Facing imminent bankruptcy, they were forced to accept an acquisition. And the buyer? A man with the last name Lewis. Our 2 little pets had stuffed themselves full and were now curled up in their beds, napping peacefully. I snuggled against Ryan, lazily reaching out to poke his side. "Ryan, when did you start gathering evidence?" He ignored me, still upset. He was angry that I had knowingly put myself in danger, choosing to confront Ethan alone. That day, I had seen Ethan's car parked nearby and had deliberately sent Ryan away. "Don't be mad." "Okay," I coaxed, clinging to him with an apologetic smile. "If I had told you in advance, you wouldn't have let me go." His expression darkened. "Did you even think about how I felt?" A sulking husband was the hardest to appease. I wrapped my arms around his neck, shamelessly acting spoiled. "Of course. I thought about you." "And what exactly were you thinking?" "I was wondering what delicious meal my husband would cook for me tonight." Ryan nearly lost it. He tightened his grip around my waist, resting his head against my shoulder. His cool breath brushed against my skin as he held me tighter, his arms trembling slightly. "It hurt," he choked out. "Do you know how scared I was?" His entire body shuddered. "What if I had never found you? What if you had disappeared forever?" His voice cracked, raw with emotion. "Sophie Carter, why do you always leave me behind?" I never planned to leave him. If Ethan hadn't let me go, that recording would have gone public immediately, dragging the entire Yates family down with him. "It's my fault," I admitted, stroking his fluffy hair. "But I had a plan. I even brought a weapon." Ryan's grip on me tightened. His voice was hoarse. "And if he had hidden you away again? What if I couldn't find you?" I smiled softly. "You big idiot. If you keep crying, I'm going to have to kiss you." Ryan lifted his head from my shoulder. His red-rimmed eyes made him look like a fragile little rabbit, one that was begging to be teased. "Liar," he muttered. "I'm not a liar," I whispered. Then I leaned in and kissed him. Extra Ryan's POV. I had always loved Sophie Carter. Everyone laughed at me, calling me the bastard child. I had no family, no friends. The Lewis family's servants made my life miserable, tormenting me behind closed doors. Only Sophie noticed me. When she was 5 years old, she stuffed a bag of animal-shaped biscuits into my arms. Before that, I had never tasted a cookie. Whenever I got too hungry, I would sneak into the kitchen and steal leftover scraps. The biscuits smelled amazing. Even though my stomach was growling, I couldn't bring myself to eat them right away. Sophie stood before me, hands on her hips, ordering me in her tiny voice. "Ryan Lewis, eat the damn cookies. I'll kiss you." Liar. He was absolutely a liar. I never ate the cookies, and Sophie Carter never kissed me. Later, she changed her words again. "If you eat the cookies like a good boy, I'll kiss you." Still a liar. Sophie was different from me. Even though she was an adopted daughter, she had a family that loved her, foster parents who cared for her, and an older brother who spoiled her. In the Yates family, she could do whatever she wanted because, no matter what happened, Ethan Carter would always clean up the mess for her. On the night of her 18th birthday, she looked at Ethan from afar, her eyes sparkling like stars. She told me, "I like Ethan, and he likes me too." A dull, suffocating pain spread in my chest. I thought as long as she was happy, it was enough. But then, one day, she was gone. I searched everywhere, but I couldn't find her. My world turned gray. I confronted Ethan, demanding answers, but he only dodged the question, never giving me a straight answer. Then, not long after, news of Sophie's death reached me. I had lost her forever. If only I had been braver back then. I locked myself inside the apartment she had once lived in. Every corner still carried traces of her presence. Sometimes, I could almost see her standing right beside me. I swore to myself, over and over, that if I ever got another chance, I would protect her with everything I had. And somehow, I was lucky enough to be reborn, back to the year I turned 18. This time, I fought my way up in the Lewis family, using every method possible to carve out a position for myself. One day, I would make every last person in the Yates family pay for what they had done. Dealing with them wasn't difficult. After all, in my past life, I had spent 3 whole years dismantling them piece by piece. By the time I died, none of them had met a good ending. This life would be no different. But Sophie still saw me as the timid, insecure person I had once been. He still enjoyed the sense of accomplishment that came with protecting me. So I let him. As long as it made him happy. There were times when I could barely keep up the act. But luckily, he never noticed. That day in the hospital, when Sophie reached out to me, I couldn't hold back any longer. I wrapped my arms around him tightly. And then, he called me husband. Hold me. In my heart, I whispered back, I missed you so much.